the holidays, or the Holy Daze. Daze as in bewilderment, or like dazed, stunned, trance, that kind of thing. Daze. Holiday as in holy days, holidays. But yeah, I think all holidays are trance spells. Like the main purpose of them, they all have probably different aspects to their individual spells, but each of them is a magic spell, and the purpose of them is to put people into a trance, a hypnotic trance. They have certain terms and conditions. The terms for, like, let's say Groundhog Day are Gobbler's Knob, Punxsutawney Phil, the Rainmaker, the Shingle Shaker. They have all these little terms that they use. Those are the terms before the conditions. And the conditions are involved with some astrologically significant date. Groundhog's Day, February 2nd, is the embolic, which is the time between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Spring equinox is Easter. The winter solstice is Christmas. Summer solstice is Memorial Day. Fall equinox is Labor Day. The time between the fall equinox and the winter solstice is Halloween. They all have significant, like an astrologically significant date, and they all have certain terms that are used. And then if you start using the terms, then you're going by their terms and conditions. It's the terms and conditions of the spell. And the conditions are like hypnotic trance conditions. Now, if you watch any rapid hypnosis guy on TV or on YouTube or something, they all do something different when they put someone into a trance. And it usually has something to do with consent or tacit consent. So they might even just like go up to the person and straight up say to them, do you want to be hypnotized? And then they'll ask them something else. And then they'll put them in trance because they consented to it. Or they'll do it tacitly. They'll have them like say, okay, stand in front of me like this. And then spread your feet apart like this. Look at my forehead. Okay, when I count to 3, you'll sleep, something like that. And by following his orders, by standing where he wants you to stand, looking where he wants you to look, and listening to what he wants you to do, that's tacit consent. You're giving consent to it. So he doesn't have to actually ask you, do you want to be hypnotized? He can get you to tacitly consent to it. And each of those little things that he does, like stand here, look here, do this, whatever, that's all. Those are the conditions to get you into hypnotic trance. And these can be you can consciously set these conditions.
But I would leave them, if they were very suggestible, with the instruction that when you come back, if I click my fingers, you'll go back into the sleep state. And they kind of get conditioned to that. And it'll often work, even like a week later. And this guy came, and I thought I'd seen him before. I thought he'd been on a previous week. So he sat down and went, okay, look at me, and sleep, click my fingers. And he went out, whatever that means, right? And then we did whatever it was. Maybe, perhaps he wanted to stop smoking, or his hands floating in the air, whatever it was. And at the end of it, I realised in talking to him that I hadn't met him before. So then I'm like, well, why did you respond to me clicking my fingers? And because I don't have magic fingers, there's nothing like anything going on here other than, and I realized it was just that moment of my kind of confidence with it, and the fact, fortuitously, that he was also very suggestible, and put those two things together, and that's what made it work. It was just that psychological moment for him that was more important than the nature of the 20-minute script that I'd been learning and using up to that point. So that was.
I don't think they really understand the power of that. But that means you could set conditions to do anything for magically or like spell wise, because it's what it's doing is the conditions build a belief pressure, an etheric belief pressure, which causes a vacuum, and a vacuum must close because nature abhors a vacuum, and the number one priority of all laws of the universe is nature abhors a vacuum. The nature will break every single other law. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's shooting fireballs out of your hand or something. I mean, that's a little crazy, but if you meet the conditions and build a big enough vacuum, then it has to close, and it closes along the path of least resistance. So if you provide a path of least resistance, in this case, the person goes into a hypnotic trance or falls asleep or whatever, when it comes to hypnosis or the holidays, then they fall asleep. That's the path of least resistance, that they just simply fall asleep right there. Even though they're not sleepy, they're not tired, they're not anything. They just fall into a trance. And this is how I think all the holidays are doing this. They're all hypnotic spells. I think there's other aspects to each of these holiday spells. Like, I think the Groundhog's Day spell is also a suppression spell to suppress the spirit of Punxsutawney, which was a Indian shaman that was cursed the land of Western PA to be like swarmed with flies and mosquitoes and gnats. And the actual name means pixie. Punxsutawney means Lord of the Punkies. The Punkies are like, they're pixies. So the Lord of the Fairies, basically, is what Punxsutawney means. And that was the guy's name, Lord of the Fairies, and or Lord of the Flies. And that's what Beelzebub is, the Lord of the Flies. That's what Beetlejuice is, the Lord of the Flies. So he was like the real life Beetlejuice, basically. He plagued the land. So about 100 years ago, they did the Groundhog's Day ceremony, and it's like when they do they like chant.
It's a tradition. Before we get Phil out, we get him fired up by chanting Phil, 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 Phil.
And like the name of the groundhogs is Phil, right? Well, we think it means P-H-I-L, Phil, but I think when they chant Phil, they're chanting F-I-L-L. Phil, 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 Phil. They're filling like and they're all drunk while they do it. So it's like they're raising spirits. And I think the raising spirits has two different meanings. It could mean raising as in like rising up, or raising as in destruction, like R-A-Z-E. Raise. And they raise the spirits, and then they chant Phil. So they're like filling the spirit of Punxsutawney with the drunk spirits that they're chanting. They're literally chanting like a magic spell. They're chanting it. But yeah, I think that's the secondary reason for Groundhog's Day. I think that every holiday probably has multiple aspects to like the spell, what the purpose is. But the main one, I think, is just to put everyone into a daze. Christmas is like insane. A guy in a red suit goes down the chimney and delivers presents, and he's always watching you to see if you're naughty or nice. And he drives a sleigh with reindeer, and one of the reindeer has a red nose, and they can fly. And he gets around the whole world one night, and he does it for milk and cookies. He's milking cookies in each house through the chimney. It doesn't make any sense at all. Same with the Easter Bunny. Easter Bunny makes no sense. Even less sense. A bunny lays eggs? What? It's magic spell. It's spellcraft. I think a part of it is even that the reason why they're so ridiculous is because that's a part of the mind control. They get you to believe in something that's complete nonsense, then they've broken your brain. You can believe anything. That's part of the hypnotic thing too. But yeah, I think that's what holidays are. And I hope you enjoyed the video.